What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again, week 3 with my favorite tournament targets of the week. Some guys are going to be low owned, have some great upside in their matchups, and really lead you up the leaderboards of some tournaments. So before we get going, be sure to drop a like in the video. It really helps me out so I can keep these videos coming your way every single week. And if you guys are just enjoying the DFS content that I'm uploading, some good information for the NFL, definitely leave a like. So thank you if you can do that. And if you happen to be new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button to get these videos the rest of the NFL season. Also, NBA DFS season is fastly approaching. Less than a month, it will be here. So if you want some good NBA DFS information as well, hit that subscribe button. After you subscribe, hit the bell icon and get alerted every time I upload. So do all that good stuff. And let's get into it. First up, we got some good quarterback targets. Andy Dalton, mentioned him in my other videos, so the same thing kind of goes why I like him. I think that the Bengals will be less run-oriented here in this matchup, as they're without Joe Mixon. Panthers have a really good run defense, and their secondary for the Panthers isn't very good. So the way you want to attack this defense is by passing the ball to guys like AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, and Tyler Eifert, and even Gio Bernard out of the backfield. So at 5,700, I think the opportunity is definitely there for Andy Dalton to have a really good game. The passing attempts should be up around 40 plus. I would expect here again for him, and just has a good upside, a good price tag, and he's going to be low owned. So that's my first target. And for another good spot here, it's going to be Andrew Luck right below him at 5,600. In this matchup, I'm expecting the Eagles to be up like around a touchdown or even more this whole entire game. So a good game script for Luck, who had similar situation against the Bengals. Even though they were tied or in the lead most of that game, they were able to pass the ball a good amount because they weren't able to run the ball. And in the last drive or last two drives, they were kind of fighting to get back into the lead. So they kind of opened up the passing offense. So against the Eagles here, I would suspect for them to be down, like I said, meaning more passing attempts and more upside with the passing yards and stuff like that. And the Eagles' pass coverage hasn't been very good this year. I mean, against the Matt Ryan, he was able to drive it up and down the field pretty easily. It's just that he missed some throws to Julio Jones and stuff like that. And also they weren't able to punch in any scores around the red zone. So I think Andrew Luck can have better success in the red zone. And we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick have a very good game against them last week. Had over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't think Andrew Luck will be able to do that again against this Eagles defense, but I think he can get around 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns here when some good opportunity with some more passing attempts coming his way. So that's my second guy at a good price tag at 5,600. And for my final quarterback, Alex Smith, around that same range here, going against Green Bay, similar to Andrew Luck. I'm expecting the Redskins to be working from behind here, as against Aaron Rodgers and this Packers team. They can definitely put up some points against Washington, meaning Smith could have some more opportunities for passing. They could abandon the run offense, as this Packers running defense is really solid. And Adrian Peterson didn't look nearly as good last week as he did in week 1. So Alex Smith, they could go more shotgun with a guy like Chris Thompson and open up this passing offense. They did come out and say that they want to have some more down the field passing. So that means they could get some better opportunities for Alex Smith to have some more yardage, some more big play potential, and he has the ability to get some rushing yards. I mean, 1.4 points from rushing isn't too bad as a nice little floor, and he does have the ability to get around 20, even 30 yards rushing. And Kirk Cousins, he had a very good game against them last week. I mean, that's the guy who he's replacing, so maybe he has a little bit of motivation to have a good week, following up on Kirk Cousins' performance last week against Green Bay. So that's my final quarterback. 3 good values in Alex Smith, Andy Dalton, and Andrew Luck. And now for running back, how I think the ownership is really profiling out. It looks like Kamara or Gurley are really going to get a lot of ownership. I think one of those two guys are going to be in a lot of lineups. But for a nice pivot is Ezekiel Elliott here in the spot against Seattle. How I think this offense or just game will kind of go. I'm expecting the Seattle offense to really struggle, meaning that they're going to have a good amount of 3-and-outs against this defensive front, which is very good, and DeMarcus Lawrence and all these guys that can really get after the quarterback, and Seattle's offensive line is really banged up. So I think Ezekiel Elliott will have the ability to get over 20 carries here, maybe 25 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown, which is a really good game. And yeah, he's been more active in the receiving game as well. He's had 5 catches and 3 catches in his first 2 games. Even though he hasn't been able to do much with those catches, it's still worth some value as it's point per reception on DraftKings. So at 7,700, not a bad little value at all, and he is a nice little low ownership. The guy is gravitating towards Kamara, who actually, I really like Kamara, but in GPP, normally it's more profitable to be on a guy that has lower ownership, and there is still a chance that Kamara doesn't do very good, and Ezekiel Elliott can do very good in this matchup. So at 7,700, a nice little pivot there. And for my second guy, Kenyon Drake, his opportunity hasn't been great as Frank Gore is still working in there, but any of these games, we could see a big little bump of the usage for Kenyon Drake, and I think this is one of those games where it could happen, as he's been or he was very effective against the Jets, 11 for 54 with 4.8 yards per carry. And this is another good matchup here going against Oakland, one of the worst run defenses. So I think Kenyon Drake could get some good yardage here, even though his opportunities haven't been great. If the guy's killing it against this Oakland defense, they'll continue to keep on going his way. And he's been pretty active in the receiving game as well, 4 and 3 catches. Not doing much with it, but I think he can just have some more big plays here in this matchup against a bad defense. And Frank Gore, as the year goes on, he could have some more wear and tear. He's an old guy. We always are thinking that he's going to kind of fade away. But even in any kind of week, Frank Gore could be ineffective, and Kenyon Drake could be the hot hand, so they could lean on Kenyon Drake. And against this Oakland defense, they don't have much speed, so I think Drake can really take advantage of this matchup. We saw that last week, how Royce Freeman kind of struggled against Oakland, but Phillip Lindsay, the speedier, shiftier guy, had a really good game. So something similar to that could happen here with Kenyon Drake. So 5,600, solid matchup. It's going to be low owned, so that's my second running back. And for my third guy, really cheap price here, Nyheim Hines at 3,600, going against the Eagles. Like I mentioned with Andrew Luck, I'm expecting the Colts to be working from behind here. So that means a lot of Nyheim Hines, especially with Marlon Mack, looking like he's going to be out of this game. And in week 1, when Mack was out, he got 45% of the snaps. And most of that game, they were tied or even up in that game. So with a game where the Colts could be down a touchdown or 2, we're going to be seeing a lot of Nyheim Hines, and he's very active out of the backfield, receiving the ball, especially in week 1. He had 7 catches for 33 yards. Not very efficient with it, but still 7 catches is a really good sign, especially for full point PPR. So he has that ability to rack up some receptions, similar to a guy like Chris Thompson did last week against the Colts, where he got 12 catches as they're working from behind most of the game. So I think Nyheim Hines, 3,600, really good value for a guy that's going to be overlooked, I think. So that's my 3 running backs. Got to turn the page here for my notes for the wide receivers. First guy up, though, it's going to be Odell Beckham here going against Houston. I mentioned how Houston's secondary isn't very good. They have been pretty good against wide receivers so far, but last week was kind of an anomaly because Marcus Mariota was out, and they only threw the ball 20 times because they were super kind of safe with their offense. The Titans, that was. But the Giants, I think they're going to get Odell Beckham going a lot here in this game. He wasn't too happy about last game and their offensive performance. He came out and said that he wasn't very happy with it. And I think that means they're going to give him the ball a lot more here in this game. Eli Manning, he was checking the ball down way too much last game, and I think Odell's going to be all right, just give me some opportunities here. They've been showing Odell Beckham just wide open on some of these routes, but Eli isn't pulling the trigger. But now in this game, I would suspect Eli to be looking his way a lot more here, get closer to what he did week 1 with 15 targets, and he has a really big upside, a big ceiling to have huge games. I think he can have a 10-catch outing here for 130 yards and maybe a touchdown or 2. So at 8,200, not a bad price tag considering his upside, and his ownership probably won't be too high. And also, he does have a positive game script, as I think they'll be down in this game working from behind, so can definitely rack up some receptions. So 8,200, really good play there for Odell Beckham. For my second guy, Will Fuller, one of the best matchups you can really ask for at 5,900, going against a backup cornerback and B.W. Webb, as Eli Apple has been ruled out of this game. He's been playing pretty well, so that's a big downgrade in cornerback play for the Giants. I think Will Fuller can definitely take advantage of the matchup. He looked really good week 2 against the Titans, went 8 for 113 with a score. So I think he could have a similar game to that, get like 7-8 catches for like 100 yards and a touchdown. He has that huge playability. I mean, like, he could be literally doing nothing through the first 2 quarters, and then in the third quarter, he could go, like, for, like, a 70-yard touchdown. So, a really good GPP play. His ownership is projected to be pretty low, and he has that huge game upside. So, that's my second wide receiver. And for my third wide receiver, it's going to be Calvin Ridley. This guy is going to be off the radar for most people, I think. It's not for a bad reason. I mean, he is a rookie. He hasn't fully cemented himself in the NFL. But in this matchup, going against Ken Crawley, who has been one of the worst cornerbacks in the whole NFL so far this year, he's allowed the second most yardage to wide receivers with 208 yards allowed and 3 touchdowns allowed. So I think a guy like Calvin Ridley could get the better of him. And also, I think the Saints defense is going to really try to limit Julio Jones to this matchup, like make Calvin Ridley beat them. Lattimore is a solid cornerback. He could limit Julio Jones a little bit in this matchup. They could show him like some bracket coverage and stuff like that. And normally teams like to take away Julio Jones in the red zone. So that means some more opportunities for like touchdowns and just receptions for Calvin Ridley at a nice price tag at only $3,700. Had a solid game against Carolina last week, 4 for 64 and a score. So I honestly could see like a very similar game as that for Calvin Ridley, where he gets a few catches and he does get a touchdown in the red zone. So at $3,700 and a potential shootout between the Falcons and the Saints, and a game where Julio Jones could be like really targeted on, meaning like they're going to try to limit him as much as possible. So Calvin Ridley, really good spot there as my final wide receiver. He's going to be low owned. So that's my 3 wide receivers. You got Ridley, Fuller, and Odell Beckham. And for my first tight end, Will Dissly here at $3,300. The guy has been really good through the first 2 games. I mean, he's probably been like their best target for Russell Wilson through the first 2 games with Doug Baldwin out the first 2. So 3 catches in both games. He's been super efficient when he's been given opportunities. So I suspect Seattle will try to get him going a little bit more here in this game. I mean, like a few more targets hopefully, because he's been like their most effective guy every time they're going to him. So I don't see why Seattle wouldn't try to get him going a little bit more. And the wide receivers have been kind of struggling. Like Brandon Marshall still looks a little bit slow on the outside. He's been struggling to create separation. So Will Dissly could be like the second target behind Tyler Lockett, I think, in this game. And I suspect Seattle will be working from behind. Like I mentioned, I think Seattle is going to struggle at first. Dallas kind of gets some good rushing ability with Ezekiel Elliott, and then they'll be working from behind and try to get Will Dissly going here, I think, in this game. So at $3,300, another guy that's going to be low-owned. I think he has a really good opportunity for another big game there against Dallas. And for my second guy, Charles Clay here at $3,000 going against Minnesota. So Buffalo, they're going to be down in this game, probably like a 99% chance they'll be down by like a touchdown or so. So that means you're going to have to pass the ball to catch up and be competitive in this game. So the wide receivers, one of the worst wide receiver units in all football, Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones. So they're really going to struggle against a really good Minnesota cornerback group. But Charles Clay, he could get some work here a lot more, I think, than he'd gotten over the first 2 weeks, especially with McCoy looking like he's not going to play. So Charles Clay is going to be that guy the Bills are going to have to go to here. I mean, like, someone's going to have to catch the ball, and I think it's going to be Charles Clay here in this matchup. So against the Vikes, they've actually allowed the 4th most yardage to tight end so far in the first 2 weeks. So Charles Clay, I think he can have a very solid game. He's going to be under-owned. And positive game script. We're working from behind the majority of this game. So that's my second tight end. And for my third guy, Ian Thomas. This guy, his downside could be like 0 points, but I think he has some good opportunity here for a big game. Going against Cincinnati, who has been really bad against tight ends. They're allowing the most fantasy points out of any defense to tight ends through the first 2 weeks. And I mean, he was on the field a lot last week. He had 95% of the snaps. He actually dropped a touchdown last week, so maybe he'll try to make up for it this week against Cincinnati, which is a great matchup. And he actually ran the second most routes among all tight ends last week. So I mean, like, the opportunity is there for him to have a huge game at $2,800, like the best matchup you can ask for as a tight end. So this is his point. I mean, it's opportunity for to prove like that he is a solid player and stick around in this Carolina team. So really good value at $2,800. That's my final tight end in Ian Thomas. And now for the defenses. I mean, a lot of the defenses that I like are going to be highly owned. So these are kind of more risky options, but a low-owned defense that's going to be in a good spot, I think, here is the Ravens defense going against Denver. I mean, Case Keenum has not looked too great in the first 2 weeks. He's turned the ball over too much. I think the Ravens could pick him off here in this matchup. I mean, they got 6 sacks week 1. Really struggled week 2 against Cincinnati, but now back in Baltimore, I think they can get behind this home crowd and really make this Denver offense struggle as they're going from Denver, where they really play well at home, but not so much on the road. So I think the Ravens defense could have a solid bounce back here against an okay offense, but I think they actually matched up really well against the Denver offense. So that's my first defense. And for my second one, the Dolphins defense has been really surprisingly good. I mean, at 2,700, still a solid price tag against an Oakland offense that can definitely be limited. I mean, Derek Carr looked really good last week, but do we really suspect Derek Carr to have 2 great performances back-to-back? I personally don't. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback, so I think the Dolphins could get after him, maybe a few sacks, maybe a pick or 2 here in this matchup. So at 2,700, can definitely have another good game here at home in Miami against Oakland, a West Coast team, going to the East Coast. And for my final defense, the Bengals defense, why the hell not? I mean, Carolina's offensive line is an absolute disaster. They don't have much pass protection at all for Cam Newton. So I think the Bengals could get a few sacks here in this game. They've been looking really well. I mean, looking really good throughout the first 2 games with the turnovers and just the sacks. They have one of the best defensive lines in all football, I think, especially in the interior with Atkins and Billings. So at 2,500, don't need to do much at all to return value, and I think they can do enough here to actually have another double-digit game here in DraftKings scoring. So that's my final defense at 2,500, a really good value. So all those defenses are really good values, all below 3,000, Ravens, Dolphins, and Bengals. So that is it, though, for the GPP plays. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to slap a like in the video if you did before you head out. Thank you so much if you can do that. And also, like I said, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to get these plays and just my thoughts on guys I'm looking at and teams, defenses, you name it. Some good information here, so definitely keep it locked here by subscribing. And good luck this week, guys. If you have any questions, you can follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby, the same thing as my YouTube name. And you can comment any questions down below on the video if you have any other questions I can answer on this video as well. So good luck, like I said. Hope you guys win some money on the slate, and we'll see you back here again next time.